Hello everybody, welcome back to some more HypoZilla, and today we are going over the top 10 games of the last decade, of the 2010s. Now this is my own personal opinion. I've played a lot of games, but these games really stuck out to me, and that's why I put them on this list. Some of them would have made them onto this list, and I shall give them honourable mentions right now. By the way, before we get in, this is my opinion. Just don't judge me on the things I pick, okay? Okay. Anyway, honorable mentions go to The Isle, and Fallout New Vegas. Those are the other two games. Anyway, let's get into the video. So coming in at our number 10 spot is Outlast. Now this is a horror game that actually really scared me, and it came out in 2013, a year before another game that is further down on this list. It is a game that also stuck out to me, and you know, the fact that you're in an insane asylum and you're a reporter with no weapons but a camera, and that's all you have. All you have is a camera, and your task is just to record things and find out what happened at the asylum. And everything goes batshit crazy. So it's actually a really good game, and considering the fact that it really holds no limits to what it does. It's a gory, violent horror game, you know, and it's very religious in a sense that they do sort of like kill off a priest. Spoilers, but it did come out in 2013. But they killed a priest, and so it's like you are an apostle. But minor gripes are sort of like the fact that it needs a remaster, and the sequel weren't that good, and the fact that the tasks you do are very similar, especially when you go with like Chris. You have to go from point A to point B, back to point A, and to point B. Anyway, number 9 we have Prey. Now this is a horror game that probably took me the longest to beat, and this is the fact that I got so confused while playing, because it's technically an quote unquote open world horror game. You play as Morgan Yu, either a male or a female character, which isn't fairly common in a horror game on who you pick, especially with a story-driven horror game. And the story to this game is very confusing, and there's multiple endings. You can end the game pretty much in the first hour, or the first couple of hours. When you sort of like replay the game, it's very replayable because of the fact of it's so different every time. You know, and when I first played it, because I streamed it, it was terrifying. You know, like the phantom scared me, the mimics scared me, the nightmare scared me, and that is one of my favourite things about Prey, the nightmare. You know, the enemies in the game are alright. They do get kind of annoying, especially when you get into the later parts of the game, because they go everywhere. So it's like the infection is spreading all over the station. But it definitely takes aspects from Alien Isolation, and you can see that when you are playing the game. But that doesn't really take away from it. Anyway, Prey gets number 9. It is actually a really remarkable game, and it's made by Bethesda, who actually made the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series. So there's that. and Prey works kind of well. Anyway, coming out number 8, we have Godzilla for the PS4. Now, this isn't just because I'm a Godzilla fan or anything. I actually love this game, but I hate it at the same time. And that's because it's so repetitive, and it especially when you're going through all the monsters, and even then when you're fighting, it's unfair. Like, you could be going up against a monster that just beats you, and even if it's small, it gets a good hit, many good hits on you, and gets you close to death. But if you play as that monster, there'll be another monster that actually if you become that monster that had an advantage over you, if you, for example, destroyer of the high side Godzilla, then if you were to be destroyer, the high side Godzilla would have an advantage over you, which doesn't make sense. And so it's just gameplay mechanics that shouldn't have been here. Actually, there is one game that I should have added, and that was Resident Evil 7. That was a beautiful game to play, but it's not on the list. I guess it can be an honourable mention. Anyway, Godzilla for the PS4 is... the soundtrack is beautiful because it sort of remasters soundtrack, like themes from older Godzilla films, and also adds in a few new ones, which are good. But again, they do get kind of repetitive, and when you hear the same theme over and over and over, it does get kind of stuck in your head, and you want to shoot yourself in the face. But the design is good, the monster design is good, but it does also look very dated at the same time. So that's the only bad things, mostly bad. Number 7, we have GTA 5. Now, you can't go on a top 10 game of the decade without GTA 5 being in here. This took the world by storm. I believe it was when it came out, it was one of the highest grossing games ever. And it probably still is. It's probably in the top 10. It's really a good game, and the story is alright. The gameplay is good. It does get kind of frustrating at parts, especially when they remastered it for the PS4. The game became a lot better, especially seeing as you can now go in first person. And who doesn't like a first person game where you can roam around? You can just go from Mount Gilead to the port. And I did a couple of streams early last year where I did a truck driver. You can do so much, especially if you completed the main campaign. And that's why this game still holds up, but it really does need a sequel at this point. And the fact there hasn't been one there hasn't even been news of one in about 7 years. The game's also almost been out 7 years, which is actually crazy to think about. It came out in 2013. 2013 was a good year for games. Came out in 2013, and it sort of I forgot what I was saying. Because I was saying when it was 2013 was a popular year. Overall, it's actually a really good game, but after a while it does get kind of boring, and that's just because of repetition. Number 6, we have Far Cry 4. Now, this is also a game that I also really like the story of, and it's a major improvement over Far Cry 3. I liked the game, I liked Vass, but Pagan the main enemy, quote unquote, really stands out to me, and that's because he isn't an enemy at all. In fact, he's a good guy, and the people that you are helping are the bad guys. So it's an inverted story, and it's probably the biggest inverted story that I can think of. It is actually it's a really good game. The gameplay is good. The animals in the game are also good. But yeah, the biggest thing I like about Far Cry 4 is in fact Pagan Min. There was also another character, I forgot his name, but I actually grew very attached to that character, and when he ended up leaving, it was sort of like I got teary-eyed, but you know. The ending of the story was a bit meh, but the true end of the game is where you do go back to a town, depending on who you chose, and and you just see what happens without Pagan. So Pagan kept things in order, but you just had a resistance against him, but there's not going to be any resistance against the ones that you were helping for whatever reason. But yeah, Far Cry 4 is actually a really good game, and it came out in 2014, and 2014 was again another good year for games, but Far Cry 4 is one of my favourites. Anyway, number 5, we have Far Cry 5, fittingly. Now, this game came out March of 2018, so it's almost 2 years old. And you get Far Cry 4, and you make it better. You update the graphics system. It's basically, it pretty much is at this point GTA 5, but in a more rural area. Rural area than urban. You know, because like, you got GTA and it's urban, and you got Far Cry 5 and it's rural. The characters to the game are also really good. Joseph Seed was a great villain, and he was sort of like twisted by his own mind, especially after losing, I believe it's his wife or his girlfriend, and so that drove him to kill his child. And he was saying that because that was an act of God. You also got Cheeseburger the Bear. You can't, you can't take points off the game from having a pet bear, especially one called Cheeseburger, and especially one that you don't exactly tame. But this and it feels easier than Far Cry 4, but Far Cry 5, like the downsides of Far Cry 5, or there are some elements, especially when you're doing tasks. After each specific point, you'll be taken somewhere, and then it gets repetitive until you get to like Face Region. I think that's where it gets a bit different, or like John's. I think it's John's. Anyway, number 4, we have, you guessed it, Fortnite. Now, before anyone shouts at me, let me explain myself. So Fortnite is a game I actually hate. I actually really hate the game, and I always say I hate the game. I just really like playing it. Now that doesn't mean I like the game. I just like playing it. And the only times I like playing it is when I'm playing with friends. Like Epic Toxies, I hear Harris, Godzilla Fan for Life. When I play with them, it's actually really fun, and we're going to like this map, and it's like 1v1 Desert Zone Wars. We go on that. That's mainly what I play. I don't really go into public matches. People there are actually really toxic, especially when you get higher up. More people, the higher up you are, the more toxic the people are. And that is something that doesn't just make me mad, but it makes everyone mad. And that's why people hate the Fortnite community, because of the kids that play it, that are just toxic, that they're like, right, okay, boomer, I'm better than you at this game, boomer. And so it's just a bit, meh. You could do without it, really. But yeah, when you are like going through the matches, like in like a solo, it can get quite tense, and you feel, especially when you get to the end game, and you feel the adrenaline, and then especially when you get that victory royale, it always feels good to get a victory. And that brings us to our number 3 spot. Jurassic World Evolution. Now, when this game came out in June 2018, so it's going to be 2 years and 6 months. When this game first launched, it wasn't the best, but they soon added stuff to it, and now at this point it's like a solid game and it's really good. The campaign falls flat, but when you're playing, you get this sense of creativity. Not me at this point, because I've run out of ideas. I just get bored of the game really easily, to be fair. But like having dinosaurs in your park, and the variation of them, from like Acrocanthosaurus to Albertosaurus to T-Rex to the Spinosaurus to the Indominus Rex to the only minor gripes I have are like when you have the Dilophosaurus, they don't really look like how they did in Jurassic Park. The Jurassic Park dino was had a skinny head. This one has like a really bulky T-Rex head, and it literally has a T-Rex head, just without the teeth showing. Which I believe on actual Dilophosaurus, the teeth do show. So, but this game is actually very solid, and it really did get. I think it broke 1 million sales in a couple of days, and I remember I spent 2 days on Isla Penna, and by the time I completed Penna, I had 2 broken controllers. So that's the downside. When you first play, it's actually quite difficult to know what you're doing unless you watch a playthrough of the game. Anyway, that brings us to our number 2 spot. Now this will surprise many. Alien Isolation. Now I've been playing this game almost 6 years, and I love it. It's got such a good story. The characters, the only ones that I really like are actually like Ripley, Ricardo. That's really it. Not many good characters. But you've got the alien, which is absolutely terrifying, and when you're playing it, it is really, really fun. Especially when when you're playing on the hardest difficulty, it's really fun. And I'm always there like, I wish I played this game sooner. Now, if you don't get what I mean, is I wish I didn't play it in 2015, but somewhere like last year. I did a full playthrough of the game last year. If I had like a blind playthrough, it would have made the game a lot better, and I probably would have gotten more sort of views from it, because it's a game I've been playing for so long. I know what I'm doing. There could be periods where I do forget some elements of the game, but they come back right away as I'm going through it. But it never ceases to tense, like to scare me, to make me jump, to give me anxiety. Mission 17 still gives me anxiety. But yeah, from the AI to the gameplay, it's all really, really good, and the graphics, really good. Now, number 1, probably a surprise again to many, The Last of Us. Now, when I played this, I felt touched. I felt compelled. I felt a whole wave of emotions going through the game. When I first started playing, I was there like, alright, well, I really care for Joel already because he's lost his daughter, and that's why it's so hard on people. And it's been 20 years since an outbreak. And then Ellie comes into his life, and he's like, well, it's trying to be like another daughter figure. And he's going to take her from Boston, I believe, to Salt Lake City. to a hospital, and you know the trip around just looks really good, and you meet many faces, there's one point in the game where it gets really emotional, apart from the prologue, which did actually make me teary-eyed. And I do have the series already recorded. Part 1 and Part 2 are up as the time of this recording. But again, as I was saying, the graphics are beautiful. The story is just mind-blowing. And I really can't wait for Part 2 to come out in, what is it, just 6 months, I believe? I believe it's 6 months. Anyway, I always wanted to play it, and you know, then we got the remastered, and I was like, okay, now I must play it. But I've always put it off until a couple of days ago, where I went through the game, and I spent, I think, 13 hours. Like, it was a 13-hour gameplay of that I did. So it should be like 13 hours of recording, or roughly so. I did lose a couple of hours. But it's still a really good game, and it really will stand up to the test of time, and it still does. You know, I purposely avoided watching videos for this game when I was going into it, and just going through it, like, again, it's still a really good experience. And then there's the part where you are without Joel for like a chapter, and the ending is really touching, because that ending, like, to that specific chapter did in fact make me teary-eyed. And then the chapter after that, where you're in Salt Lake City, you see a giraffe, and I was there like, oh my god, this. And then I played the Left Behind, and that just made things a lot better. Anyway, I just really love The Last of Us, and it's probably in my top 3 favourite games ever. Probably coming at number 2, if not number 1. For the first time ever, surpassing Zoo Tycoon 2. That used to be my favourite game ever. Anyway, that was my top 10 list. What's your top 10 list? Let me know down in the comments. Let me also tell me if you agree with this list on top 10 games of the decade. To be fair, my opinion, I absolutely love the game. No one can stop me from loving the game. You know, an Alien Isolation. It was a very tough tie between Alien Isolation and The Last of Us. But from my Last of Us experience, I have to put Alien Isolation behind and put that at number 2. Hell, Jurassic World Evolution was actually going to surpass Alien Isolation, but then it's stuck at number 3. But yeah, I really can't wait to play The Last of Us 2 when it comes out, and I'll play it on the channel. But yeah, that was my list. Thanks everyone so much for watching, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.